Welcome, folks. My name is Ricky Guzman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm one of the retention specialists at the Academic Advancement Center. Really excited to have you all here and with some great presenters to talk about navigating the graduate school application process. Yeah, a couple of housekeeping items. We are recording the session today so that we can distribute to folks who weren't able to make it. So if you would like to access this recording after, we will have details about how to grab that recording as well as all the other recordings from our conference this week that will be available for our attendees. I welcome you if you want to turn your camera on and kind of engage with our presenters. We're really excited to have that. If you do have questions and such throughout, there is a chat box that's available for you, or you can probably speak up throughout as well. Let's take a look here. Yeah, also kind of, yeah, please requesting that you mute your audio so to avoid any kind of awkward interactions within that. But also if you'd like to rename yourself within the Zoom format so that we know who we have on the call and who's joining us, that would be awesome as well. So otherwise, within that, I'd like to hand it over to our presenters today. Thank you.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Gomez. I work in El Centro, which is one of the cultural centers on campus. And what else? What are things that you need to know about me? So I got my bachelor's degree in social science. I studied, well, first I started marketing, and then in my third year, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I changed to social science. I took a gap year. Before going to grad school, I did AmeriCorps, and then I went to Colorado State University to get my master's degree in student affairs and higher education, hence me working in a college campus and working in a cultural center. I am a first generation college student. My grandmother only finished the 3rd grade, so it's I like to always say that my presence on college campus is radical, and I think a lot of you are also in that same boat too, right? So think about that. And then I'm from Portland, Oregon, and fun facts, I really like Halloween. Hence the sweater. So thank you all for being here today. It's tough right now. It's midterms, election, so on and so forth. So thank you for spending an hour with me and Luis to ask questions and try to further your education.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Luis Rodriguez. I'm a master's student at CSU in my 2nd year in the master's program of the computer science department. I'm also a first-gen student. My parents, I think they finished elementary school, halfway through middle school, maybe. I mean, I'm happy here to talk about my experience and to help y'all with you know, getting into grad school, getting to know a little bit more about grad school and whatnot. So.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm going to do the infamous, can you see my screen? Okay, that was a question. Yeah, you can see my screen. Great. So awesome. So I have, how do I present? Cool. It's not my first rodeo. So our presentation, we're going to get through this in a whole hour. So essentially, this is kind of a general timeline. We're going to go through the timeline of graduate school and applying for graduate school. So can I see in the chat, can you all write like what year are you? Are you first year, 2nd year, 3rd year? Are you a senior? If anyone could just like write in the chat. I just want to see who's all in the room. Let's see, chat. Senior, junior, 4th year. Woo! All right. 3rd year, senior. Awesome. So that's why I say 4 to 12 months. So for you juniors, and this also applies to you seniors, it's not too late. And so these are going to be color coded, and this is kind of the format that we're going to go into. And then move to the next slide. So within the first 4, please take as many notes as possible. I also will give you a worksheet and an Excel sheet. But I will not provide the PowerPoint. So write as many notes as possible, take a picture if you need to. But yeah. All right, so for the first, for the 4 to 12 months before a grad school application deadline, so the deadlines are going to vary depending on the program that you apply for. Some are going to be in November, some are going to be December, January, February, to potentially even March. So that's why I say 4 to 12 months instead of saying October, November, etc. So you're going to have to pay attention to the deadlines of your programs. But first of all, so these are the first things the things that you're going to want to do. So you want to do reflect, set intentions, reach out to professionals, reach out to schools and programs, do some undergrad involvement, and prepare for admissions exams. And each bullet point will be a slide. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. You won't miss anything. Just briefly want to talk about reflection and intentions. So ask yourself why you want to go to grad school is really important. So what are your educational goals, personal goals, professional goals? What do you want to study? One thing that's really important about grad school is you want to go to grad school if you go to grad school. It's a lot of work. For a lot of you, you'll be also teaching or doing research or doing a graduate assistantship, and you are going to be so much of your life is going to be consumed by grad school. And so you got to be somewhat invested into it. So take a moment to reflect on that. So that's just a quick slide. And then the thing that you're going to want to do is reach out to your mentors and seek out professionals that are going to help you through graduate school. So a lot of you have your AAC advisor. The Career Center is always ready to support you. Attending workshops, check, you're doing that right now. And then staff and faculty in your respected field. And then, yeah, Luis, do you want to talk a little bit about who are your mentors or who are your professionals that you asked for grad school?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I had two in mind. One of them is Dr. Joseph Gersh. He was the teacher for one of my classes, and just all around general great guy. And he was very big about grad school and how he wanted to make it less scary for people, and he pushed me to apply for it. And then the second one is my undergraduate research advisor, who is now my graduate advisor, Dr. Ndrakshay Ray, who pretty much got me into research and just kind of like has always been there for me to just, you know, excel in what I've done and whatnot. She also pushed me to go to grad school, specifically because, you know, like my path at that moment was research. So she pushed me to continue my education and to continue doing my research. Yeah.
Thanks, Luis.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I also had a trio advisor, and so I asked a lot of questions to them. I also talked to like my supervisors and people that I admired and be like, how did you get the job you have? And they're like, well, you got to do this and you got to go to grad school. And then they could always help you even figure out what programs to look into. And one of my supervisors was like, oh, you gotta get connected to this Facebook group. And so she showed me that Facebook group, and then there people were able to like give me all of this like information of other schools that they were applying to. So that was another way. And then, so the last thing I have a bullet point here is informational interviewing. So this is really good for you to practice. So informational interviewing is asking someone in your field, someone that you don't necessarily know. Maybe you're really interested in working for Google or Intel, but you want to know how to get in or what's it like working there. If you just do a quick search, a Google search, if you do some type of search and look at staff, you would be and you read people's bios, you could always send them an email, and you could always look online on how to what to say and things like that. But you can send an email to folks and be like, hey, my name's Alexis. I'm a fourth year student at Colorado State studying biomedical engineering. And I'm really interested in what you do as a job. Can I do an informational interview? And so it's not asking them for a job. It's just asking them, like, what do you do? What do you like about your job? What do you don't like about your job? And this kind of would help you I guess, like, narrow down the path. I did some informational interviewing for people, and they also gave me advice on where to look for grad schools. Where did they go to grad school? If they did go to grad school, do they need it? Do you need it in your field? And so that's another thing I would do. If you don't feel like you have, any professionals in your field, reach out to folks. People love talking about themselves. And so lots of people do. So just people will say yes. So the next thing is, so when you're researching for schools, a lot of the things that will influence you going to school is money, right? Program credibility, location, right? Do you want to stay close to home? Do you want to move far away from home? I think as first gen students, I think in general in higher education, we're like, oh, you gotta go far away. You gotta go far away. You don't have to follow that. So location is important, right? I would love to hear in the chat what you all learned in the first workshop of how to pay for college. Does anyone want to unmute their mic or put in the chat? What did you learn in that session?
I guess I can talk a little bit about it. It's just kind of like apply for financial aid, but like don't rely a ton on it, because getting grants and financial aid is like really limited for grad school, is what they were kind of saying. So try to go for like assistantships or fellowships, and even take out loans if you're able to. I feel like there was something else that they said, but just mainly like assistantships and fellowships, I feel like were like the big good things to do to pay for grad school.
Cool. Thank you for saying that. Anyone else want to add to what they learned in their previous session? We agree with Emily. Cool. Luis, do you want to talk a little bit about paying for grad school? So Luis and I both didn't pay for grad school. And so we could talk a little bit about our experiences, but yes, so pushing heavily on those graduate assistantships, teaching assistantships, fellowships, because grants aren't really a thing in grad school. So yeah, Luis, you want to talk a little bit about how you paid for your schooling?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's trading, like a couple hours of your week essentially for tuition if you do a graduate assistantship. I really like teaching, and that was one of the things that I really kind of like, had in the back of my head and, loved doing. So that just kind of like fell really nicely into my hands for it. Helping other students, becoming a mentor for them and whatnot. And at the same time, you're getting your tuition paid for. Yeah, you have to apply for them. That's, I think I'm imagining that panel talked about it maybe, but you got to apply for them, and there's a lot of different positions you can do. Like here at CSU, I have a GTA ship right now, but in the spring I'm going to get a GRA ship, which just means it's a graduate research assistantship. Those are two really great ways to get your school paid for, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Luis. So for Luis mentioned this, it's like a trade-off. So essentially you are working, either doing research, doing admin, doing teaching, in exchange for tuition remission. And the reason why that works is because, like, let's be honest, like, it's cheaper to hire a grad assistant and a teaching assistant than it is to hire full-time staff. So, right, so it's a trade-off. It benefits win-win, right? The university wins, and then you win too, because you get your schooling paid for. You don't have to take out additional loans. And so, but there is going to be an additional application, most likely an additional application process. And so depending on what the program, and I highly recommend when you're doing research on schools and programs for you to see if they have what their funding availability looks like. Do they have grad assistantships? Do they have teaching assistantships? I can't see the chat, but Luis, can you read the chat for me?
Yeah, so Jocelyn, I think their name is, but they asked, can you touch on the application process for assistantships?
Yeah, so it's gonna vary. And so I'm gonna just speak from my own personal experience. So typically when you go to the program's website, they'll have a section to say graduate assistantships, and sometimes they'll give a list. It's like a general like job application, right? So they'll give you kind of a job description. They'll even do specific requirements, like you'll need right, supervise, like maybe a supervisor reference. You might even need to do an additional essay. And so essentially the programs on their website should give a little bit more detailed of what opportunities are out there. And if that's not explicit, ask. They usually will have a general email for you to ask questions, and you can say, hey, I'm curious if this program has any opportunities for graduate assistantships or teaching assistantships, and they should be able to get you in the right direction. But each school and each program will do their process differently, and I'll go a little bit more in depth in that in the next couple of slides because it can get complicated. But essentially they should have, it's like any other job, applying for any other job. So you'll apply for the program, and then you'll also apply for the job or grad assistant, teaching assistantship. Simultaneously, they might have the same deadline, different deadlines, and I'll show you how to organize kind of all of those processes. But there's a lot of opportunities for your grad school to be paid for. And so I don't want you all to feel discouraged by it. There are programs out there that will help. You just have to put in a little bit of extra work while you're applying for school and while you're in school as well. Does anyone else have any questions about grad assistantships, teaching assistantships, etc.? Or any professionals that want to call me out saying that I said something wrong? Cool. Another thing is program accreditability. So this is where we talked a little bit about talking to professionals in the field. Where did they go to grad school? What are programs, well-known programs? Or if you're wanting to do something specific, like I want to do sociology and agriculture, there is a program out there that does that, right? And so talk to your people, talk to people in your field to see to kind of guide you. You might not know that there's that specific program out there. And then again, we mentioned location. You got to think about if you want to stay close to home, if you don't mind moving far away, do you want to stay in Colorado, right? That's dependent on you. For those of you who are like, how many schools to apply for? I have a hard time telling you that. That's something that you're going to have to decide for yourself. It's really going to depend. However, I recommend 1 to 5 schools. Try not to apply to more than 5 schools, because if you're trying to get your schooling paid for and you want to apply for a grad assistantship, remember there's going to be 2 applications likely. And so if you apply for 5 grad schools, you're most likely going to have 10 applications, and that's like a lot. And so that's kind of a range, but it's really going to be dependent on you, dependent on your time, depending on money, because applying for schools is expensive, and sometimes there's waivers, but sometimes there's not, right? And so again, that's going to be dependent on you. I applied for 4 schools, 2 out of state, 2 in state. Luis, how many schools did you apply for?
Yeah, mine, I'm a very special case in that sense, because I only applied to CSU, right? Because I went from my undergraduate research, I just went into graduate research. So mine's a very special case. I'm not a good talker on that sense, I guess. I mean, like I applied for 1, and essentially that was my safety school, that because I knew I could get in just because of my research, essentially. Yeah.
I And you're a good, yeah, you're a good talker. Like, I think that's like that's why I brought Luis on here, is like, Luis and I have very different experiences, right? Like, I moved out of state, Luis stayed in state, applied for 1, I applied for 4, right? Like, again, it's just dependent on our, what we want and what we need for ourselves. So
Exactly.
don't feel pressured to apply to multiple schools or et cetera, right? That's dependent on you. So I want to reiterate that. So thank you for.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry. So I took a big chunk of time to heal from some domestic situations between my associates and coming back to CSU. So I guess my question is, like, I feel, and I'm sure this is just self-doubt combined with, just like you were saying, cost, and just the whole process is a little overwhelming. So thank you for everyone for taking the time to talk to us today. But is it too late to build like master-worthy credentials, like volunteer work or getting more involved in programs? I just feel like I have like this like little teeny amount of time, but I feel like my potential is really there, but my time to get this bachelor's done is not. And so I really want to dive in, but I also am realistic with running a house and all the joys of life and everything on top, and wanting to get another job and so on and so forth. So I'm involved with AAC, but I get involved with the Women's Advocacy Center, Women's and Gender Advocacy, a couple other things, I really do want to get out there, but COVID and then the time restraints. So that was a long-winded way. Do you think it's too late? Do you think that it's realistic to go to grad school with such little on my repertoire, so to speak? I'm horrible at wording things, and then I get awkward, and then I get in my own head, and so then I kind of like ramble off. So I apologize if that question didn't really come out clearly.
No need.
100%. Yeah.
No need to apologize. Actually, so you actually bring a really good point in our next slide. Don't you love when that happens, when someone asks a question and then you're like, oh, that's what we were going to talk about next. So
she told me to do that. No, I'm just kidding.
So thank you for bringing that up. It's a great question. And I would say, no, it's not too late to get involved. And so one of the things is, like, for me, I was a first-gen student. I didn't have the opportunity to join these student organizations. Like, how I got involved was through the classes that I participated in, and like the actual like paid work that I did. Those are like, because those were my only options. I was in school and I needed to pay for my apartment, right? And so hone into those things. Like you say, you got involved with WGAC, look at your coursework and see, and like talk about those things in your application. You can also, there might be opportunities in your application to talk about if your GPA maybe was a little bit lower than the recommended or whatever. There'll be opportunities for you to talk about your skills and things like that. But I would say it's never too late. And then just hone into the things, whether it was the classes that you took or the jobs that you have, talk about those in your applications extensively. Those are worth just as much as volunteering, organizations that you were a part of, et cetera, et cetera. But Luis, you want to talk a little bit about, or Deshawn, does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
That does make sense. Yeah, no, that's how my brain works too, kind of. So yes, that does. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to throw in my 2 cents too, because like, it's never too late. Okay, never too late. And I went through that self-doubt too, because I had a 2.8 GPA applying into grad school. I would even, I'm pushing it. It was 2.74 or something like that. I suffer, I have a battle with depression that went from when I lost my dad before my 3rd year of my undergrad. I didn't want to do anything, and then I got this internship that kind of introduced me to research. And this is also great since we're like contrasting speakers. I'm not super organized. I don't give myself enough time and stuff like that. I applied my senior year, of grad school. I'm not saying to wait that long, but it's still possible, if you have that drive, that motivation to do it, you want to get into it, I mean, you'll definitely get into it, you know. Research all the different ways you can get involved, talk to your professors, talk to instructors, your mentors and stuff like that. Reach out, find those resources and utilize them, you know.
Yeah, every one of these seminars, sessions, workshops that I attend, I feel like part of something, you know. So I've been on my own since I was 15, a child of 2 abusive addicts. So I don't really have any support or anything like that in any sense of the term. So thank you for bringing up depression. I too suffered with that, and anxiety and these self-doubts that are just normal on top of that. And yeah, so thanks for touching base, because those particular events and losing your dad, you know, these things make the doubt that we already feel, you know, more highlighted. So I appreciate you sharing, and thanks. I mean, I already feel, I mean, just from this first one to now, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna hit the ground running and start getting out. And I'm not involved with the WGAC yet. I want to be.
Oh, okay.
I'm involved with AAC. Yeah, just to clarify. So, but
Oh,
thank
okay,
you so
yeah.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talk about your experiences, your current experiences.
Right.
And yeah, that it's still valuable. It's still valuable. When I was teaching high schools, a lot of students that I mentored, they like couldn't get involved in all of these things because they were babysitting their siblings because their parents were working like night shift, right? And so that shouldn't be something that hinders your application, right? And so think about that. And also self-doubt creeps in, and it's your worst enemy, and don't let it. The school that I applied, there was one school that I applied for, and I almost didn't send my application because I didn't think I was going to get in. I didn't think my GPA was good enough. I didn't think I had the right credentials. And I almost didn't apply. The day that it was due, I was like, it's not good enough. My application's not good enough. But I turned it in and I got in. So it's that self-doubt that really creeps in, and you can't let self-doubt beat you. And oh my gosh, I have met so many mediocre people that's been to Stanford and Harvard. Like I'm not like mediocre. Like how like, so don't self-doubt. That's my rant. But Luis, do you want to talk a little bit about those of you who are juniors and have maybe a little bit of time to get involved in other ways? Do you want to talk a little bit about research?
Yeah, for the slide. Yeah. So like I mentioned briefly, mentioned a lot of these points in my little spiel, but research is a great gateway to get into grad school. If you're interested in specific areas of your degree, seek out those, research groups that are within your department, because I guarantee you'll find some. I guarantee they'll let you in, they'll let you just go in there and sit in, talk to the professors and whatnot. For more ideas to get involved, to see if you can get involved with them in their own projects and whatnot. The other thing is internships. Find the area you want to focus in. Again, and then the ones you don't. I know plenty of people who've internshiped at some sort of company, and they were like, "Oh heck no, never again." They reorient themselves.
Those are valuable. Like there's some internships that I was like, oh God, no. It actually made me realize to change my major. I was like, I don't want to go into marketing, right? And so it's not a waste of time when you volunteer or you have an internship somewhere and it just doesn't work out or you didn't like it. Because trust me, it's like it tells you what you do and don't want.
Yeah, exactly, right. And then the next bullet point, being a UTA as well. It's a great way to get to know your professors, and I mean, all it takes is like a decently good grade in the course that you're interested in TAing for, and then reaching out to that professor, and usually they're a paid position, which is really, really nice. And then, the last bullet point, it just kind of touches on all of them. Talk to your professors, especially if it's like a class you really enjoy, or even like it's a class that challenged you, you know, that you want to learn more about and help others get through it and whatnot. Yeah, no, get involved, definitely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who, both seniors, juniors, if you are interested in doing research, there's a thing called Murals that the diversity offices host. It stands for Multicultural Undergrad Research, Art, and Leadership Symposium. And it's essentially a research project that you create and facilitate. You create your own abstract, you facilitate your own research, but then you gather the research into this poster or some type of visual artwork. So it adds, you know, because I feel sometimes like research can be so stale and like whatever, right? Like this is like, let's make it beautiful and all this stuff. But anyway, so if you're interested in doing research and talking to a professor about maybe the research that they're doing or research that you've been a part of and you want to present on it, this is a good opportunity for you to be involved in. I'm on the committee, so if you are interested or want to learn more about it, please contact me afterward or contact Bridget Johnson or Dr. Melissa Edwards on how to get involved. This is generally a conference that happens at the end of March. And so you spend a couple of months gathering your research, creating the content, and then talking to folks and doing workshops along the way. So if you, it's not too late. So for seniors, if you are interested in this, please do this. And then, yeah, talk to me about it later. It's a good opportunity. And this is for particularly for students of color. And then, yeah, for next slide. Oh, does anyone else have any questions about involvement?
For the murals, that's you did say seniors, correct?
It's for all students of color, all grades. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Oh, students of color. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you. So another thing you want to do within the 4 to 12 months that you are applying for grad schools is preparing for admissions exams. So depending on where you're wanting to go, if you want to go to med school, if you want to go to law school, you most likely have to take one. Yeah, Luis and I both didn't take an admissions exam. I went into education. I was like, y'all, like, admissions exams are trash. Like, they don't determine how intelligent you are. I'm not going to go to a program or a school that values this. So that was my intentional decision. Yeah. I know that that's always an option, right? And I know, Luis, your program didn't require it, or was it because you were an undergrad at CSU?
I think I forget which one it was, but it was either because I was a resident of Colorado or because I was already in undergrad. But I was in the same boat. I was like, I really don't want to take the admissions exam, and if I could waive it in any way, then I'd do it. Especially because I mean, I was already, you know, trying to apply pretty late on the timeline, you know. Mm-hmm. You know, within like 2 months, I guess was mine. But yeah, no, mm-hmm. try to get it waived if you can. Definitely, yeah.
And if you are needing to take an admissions exam, just look at timelines and location. Sometimes you need to take it like in person, and it has to be at a certain time and date. And then some tests, they give you the test right away. Sometimes you have to send it to the college or program. Again, Luis and I can't really speak to that, but talk to your professionals, your AAC advisor, etc., on supporting you with that. So for the third component, the second component, 2 to 3 months before the deadline is really when you're going to get organized, finalize those lists, contact those schools, ask for letters of recommendation. And so let me exit out of here real quick. How do I exit? So the first thing I highly recommend, if you are applying for more than one school, y'all need Google Docs. And so if you you're going to want to create a folder. This one says grad school. You'll create a folder for each school that you apply to. Oh, I also was trying, okay, this is my insert of like talking about astrology. So I'm a Capricorn, so that's why you'll see all of these folders. But anyway, so I highly recommend you all getting a folders for each school. And so when you go to each folder, I recommend doing an Excel sheet, and I will send you all a template after this, and so you'll have one, so you don't have to write all of this down. But those of you who are very organized and need that structure, I recommend doing an Excel sheet where you talk about things that are important to you. So what is the degree, right? The degree is different than the program. And then, okay, when you write your essays, make sure that you write the right program and the right school, because that's a thing. I did that for a job. I didn't get that. Let me tell you, I didn't get a call back. So make sure that you have the right program listed in your essay. Contact, the location, if you care about acceptance rates. Is there a separate application? So sometimes you have to apply for the university's grad school, like the school, the entity, and then also the program, and then also the graduate assistantship. So you see how things are getting like a lot. Yeah, so this will help. And then deadline of the application, maybe a school decision. This stuff they might not even have on their website. So this is where you contact schools and ask them this information if you're interested in it. If there's an application fee. I was in AmeriCorps and I was on food stamps. So if y'all are on food stamps, you can get your applications waived for, is my understanding. If not, yeah, just look into if you can have your applications waived. Right, so what are the requirements? If you apply for multiple schools, they'll have different requirements, so add that on. If there's an interview, right, is it a quarter system? Is it a semester system? Do you care about that? And then make sure to write down, you'll always have to create a username and password to apply to these programs. And so write down your username and password, because it would suck like if you're trying to like log in and like you forgot your password and you have to go through all of these channels, and then and then the deadline is like 20 minutes ahead. Like, that's stressful. So write down the username and password. And then some other additional stuff, like I mentioned about assistantships, sometimes the deadline will be different. So making sure, keeping note of that. Is there a separate application? One school I applied for, not only did I have to apply for the program, and not only did I have to apply for a graduate assistantship, but I had to apply for each graduate assistantship that I was interested in. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, but anyway, I had to do that. So making sure you're writing those things down. I hope I'm not stressing you out too much, but I'm going to give you this template, so y'all are good. And then what type of references? There was one school I applied for that needed a fourth reference, and I was like, heck, so I had to figure out a fourth reference. And then some other things like how much are they paying me, things like that. What's this? Oh, and then these were the questions. So I'll send you that Excel sheet. This is what it looks like, what I'll give you all. Again, you don't have to use this. This is those of you who are just needing a little bit, more structure and organization. Does anyone have questions about that process? We feel good? That I stress you out? Okay, just straight faces. Okay, it's almost the end of the day. Yep, and then making sure that you contact schools, ask them questions, whatever questions you do want to ask. In this, what I interviewed this one faculty member, and I asked him a bunch of questions, and then he gave me answers, so I wrote them down. You don't have to do that. That's something that you can do. So speaking of faculty members, making sure that you ask for letters of recommendation. You're going to need these for grad school. And so the terms of who you want to pick, you want to make sure that you pick people who are trustworthy, that you know that would follow up with deadlines, someone who has a high opinion of you, who can speak to your character and your work ethic. And then for professors, you don't necessarily need to pick professors where you got A's or you got the best grade. Think of the classes that challenged you the most, and the professor saw that, right? Like, so I've gone like C's in classes, and they were still like one of the best classes I've ever taken because they really challenged me. So those are things to think about as well. When to ask, you need to at least ask a month in advance. 3 weeks is okay, but if we want to write a good letter of recommendation for you, we need time. And as you know, like, we're all busy, right? Like, we're all going through a stressful time, and so we need time to write those for you. I recommend asking in an email or during office hours if you are asking a faculty member, and try not to do it in between classes because they could be rushed or needing to do something after. So during office hours, or honestly, I prefer an email because it gives me time to think and reflect. When you do ask for a letter of recommendation, I would include your resume, the classes and grades or research that you were a part of, if it was a professor, the description of the program that you're applying to, because that could be helpful. Because if like the description of this program really emphasizes on a certain area or values or mission, then as a writer, I'm able to like, okay, this program is really into innovation. I'll make sure to put innovation like multiple times in the letter of recommendation. So writing a description of the program or the scholarship, what you're applying to, for sure put the deadline on there, and then talk about what the process would look like. Typically, you were just going to write in the email address of your letter of recommend your person, and then they'll get an email saying submit this at this time. And then after they write a letter of recommendation, always say thank you, whether that's an email, that's a card, and then update them. Even if you get rejected or like accepted, they want to know, they care about your success. And sometimes just that like little like, thanks Alexis for writing this letter of recommendation for me means a lot, like makes my day, especially during times like this. So make sure to thank them. Luis, do you want to add anything to adding letters of recommendation, how you went along that process?
Yeah, no, I mean, anyone can put a good word in for you, you know, not necessarily professors and stuff like that. It's still important to have them, you know, because you have that academic side and then you have like that personality side, you know. Mine kind of split even when I did letters of rec. I wanted to make sure that they touched on everything, you know. Yeah, definitely. But other than that, you hit the nail on it. Yeah.
Cool. So I have a little template here. I will, I know we're slowly running out of time, so I won't go too much into it. I will send you a link to this example. So everything I just talked about is on this website. How do I, no, it's not chat. Boom. Okay. So essentially this is a template if you are struggling with wording, with asking for a letter of recommendation. Essentially it's just like, I'm in the process of applying for grad schools in this field. It's important that I identify individuals that are best equipped to write letters. I think you have a strong perspective on my experiences and abilities. And then always give them the option to say no. Sometimes people are really busy or they're going through a hard time, and maybe they really do want to write you a letter, but maybe they just don't have the time or responsibilities for. So always give them the option to, like, if you can't, you can't, you know, I still appreciate what you have done for me thus far. And then at the bottom, that's where you insert the program logistics, links, and deadlines. In the Excel that I'll give you all, there's a tablet. So when you apply for graduate schools, they're going to ask you for this information of the letters of recommendation, first, last name, their title. So is it Dr. Luis Rodriguez, right? Where are they associated with? Where do they work? Their phone number, their email, and their relationship. And then it's such a pain in the butt to go through all of your emails to figure out their contact information. So here's a little Excel sheet to put that in there. So you could just like copy and paste. And then I have a few like recommendations. So if you ask, you can say like, this is the program that I'm applying to. This is the deadline. This is the format of it. And these are the classes that I took with you. Took Sociology of Gender and Work 2 years ago, and I got an A-. Those are some additional things if you want to add. So personal statements, essentially, make sure that you have folks read your personal statements, at least have 2 professionals look at it to give you feedback. You will write your essay probably multiple times and there'll be lots of edits along the way. So don't feel like it needs to be perfect the first couple of times. I encourage you to just like write a bunch of little red lines everywhere and then just write as much as you can. If you think they're rants, so who cares? Just ran away. It's always best to narrow down, right? To have as much more as possible and then shrink it. And then, yeah, I don't know, Luis, do you want to talk a little bit about your experience writing letters of recommendation?
Personal statements?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
personal
yeah.
statements, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, tell your story, you know, tell them about your background, tell them what you excel at, tell them your challenges, and, you know, like Alexis was saying, you know, write as much as you can, because you can always just trim it up, you know, you can always make it pretty in the end. Focus on the question, outline the question, you know, you've probably written very many essays, and this one's probably going to be the best topic you can write about, which is yourself.
Yes.
You know, so tailor it to the program as well. You know, don't copy and paste essays, right? Make it specific. You know, use the same wording and same words that you see in the program, and also the question and whatnot. And then, you know, the last thing is just, you know, why are you picking this field? Why are you picking that program? You know, be specific about it. Research the values within it, all the projects, you know, even the people, you know, name drop them, whoever influenced you to either get into research or get a internship or whatever, you know, I mean, they'll appreciate it, you know, but, you know, you gotta, you might want to ask them too, you know, if you want to name drop them, but yeah.
Yeah, so reiterating that, the first, like, talk about why your field and why that program. It's like, it's really easy to copy and paste some of your personal statements because they're all going to be very similar. But making sure to tailor your essay to your program. Every program is different, even though it's the same field, but why does that program speak to you? And how do you fit into that? When I applied for Colorado State, the program that I applied to was, I really like they talked about law. I would take law classes, so that I was able to look at the classes that were offered. I also knew that there were student organizations for students of color, particularly in the program. So I talked about that. I was just like, y'all have this, that means that you care about these things. And I care about these things too. So bring out some of those program values, the research, the projects, the people that are in the program. One of my closest friends in my grad school program came to CSU. She only applied to CSU. She only applied to one school. And because she really wanted to work with Dr. Susana Munoz, who does a lot of work with undocumented students. And so she was just really determined to work with, so that's what I mean by name drop, is just like, hey, I'm really interested in working with undocumented students, and there's this professional at this university who's doing this, and I want to be under them or work next to them. And so making sure you're doing that. I can't see the question. Luis, could you read the question for me?
It's just a time notice.
Oh, time notice. Okay. Oh, am I talking too much? Yeah, I'm talking too much. Okay. And then so another thing is when you're telling your story, don't make a list of all the things that you've done. Really like paint a picture of why you're in that program. So like I mentioned, I'm really interested in student affairs and higher education. I started my essay talking about the first time I set foot on a college campus. The first time I stepped foot on a college campus was the day of my orientation. So I never stepped foot on a campus before going to college, and that was significant. And so I told 4 to 8 sentences about that experience to kind of paint the significance of why education. And so I encourage you to reflect. I will also be giving you a worksheet that asks you kind of some of these questions for you to brainstorm some of your personal statements, but think about that one specific moment that made you interested in going to grad school. So 1 month before the deadline, you're going to be polishing your essays. Remind faculty and staff to submit their letters of recommendation. Don't feel rude for doing that. Just do it. I'm a very forgetful person, and if my supervisees, mentees didn't remind me, some of them wouldn't have gotten scholarships or gone to DC or any of that. So remind us, please. And then follow up and confirm application materials have been received. Sometimes you have to mail things in, or like for example, transcripts. You have to submit your transcript to a university or college. Sometimes that gets lost either by paper or by electronic. So just double check if people have received your materials. Usually when you apply for grad school, you'll have this application and it'll tell you check mark when things are received. And so check that, or sometimes they don't have that. So just keep asking. Review your application before sending. I mentioned this before. Make sure that you have the right program in the right school, in the right document, in the right application. It happens to the best of us, right? We're writing so much. So double check that. Make sure that the right format. Sometimes they'll say you need to make this into a PDF. You need to make this into a Word document. So just double check kind of those things, and then try to apply the day before the deadline. Maybe your internet's not working, maybe something's happening, and so at least it gives you like 24 hours to recover, to double check certain things. And then lastly, Luis, do you want to say anything? Add on? Okay. And then lastly, acceptance and rejection. So accept rejections, especially some of your fields are really small. So if you respond and respond positively, that's good. If you respond negatively, it's sometimes like people might talk, I don't know. But another thing about rejections, my grad school advisor always told me this: you will be one step closer to where you need to be, which has been really helpful for me, and also helps you narrow down your options. I don't like having a lot of options, so the more rejections or the less schools I have to decide, the better, right? And also their loss. Like seriously, if they don't accept you, basura, trash, they don't, like, whatever. And then for celebrating your acceptances, or reward yourself. Whether that's a trip, whether that's, I don't know, like getting a milkshake, not like whatever, right? And then making sure to update and thank the people who supported you. They care about your success. They obviously were invested in your success, and they want to celebrate with you too. So those are the other things I want to add. Okay, I'm on time? I'm on time. Cool. Luis, do you want to add anything? And then afterward, does anyone have any questions? Or am I at time? Are we at time?
We're at time, but if anybody would like to stick around for questions, that's totally fine. We will be adding this recording and distributing this to make it available for folks. If you do want to review, I think that'll be a great opportunity. Otherwise, yeah, if folks would like to stick around for questions, they're welcome to do that.
Luis, any add-ons?
No, I'm good.
Well, thank you everyone for coming to this session. I'll make sure to give Ricky or the people those templates that I mentioned so you can have access to them. And I hope I didn't stress you out too much or talk too fast, but thank you for spending the time here. Good luck with midterms and all of that fun stuff.
Excellent. Thank you to our presenters as well. Super glad to have you. Yeah, really appreciate all your wisdom and yeah, your resources as well. It's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. Yeah.
Cool. Links on for the next sessions should be within the graduate school conference program. So if you'd like to, if you're interested in the next session, otherwise keep an eye out for an overall evaluation as well. That will be coming out probably next week, folks. So again, thank you for joining the session.